KwaZulu-Natal, home to two major seaports and a designated economic zone to promote foreign and local investment.
Besides a number of challenges and the constraint in the global and the economy of the country, in terms of the contribution to the GDP of our country, KwaZulu-Natal is doing quite well. In 2015, we contributed, in the last quarter of 2017, I think we contributed 3% and a 3% increase. And before that, we were at 3.4%. We're hoping that will continue. Our intention is to ensure that we grow the GDP, our contribution to the GDP of our country should continue to grow from 3% at least to 5% by 2020, so that we are able to reach the NDP target by 2030.
The ports of Durban and Richards Bay are bustling. Durban is one of the country's main conduits for trade.
It reaches manufacturing industry, it reaches the mining sector, it reaches your restaurant, because most of the refrigerated cargo comes through the port here. It also supports the agricultural space where fertilizers and grain gets imported and exported to the port of Durban. It's got huge impact.
Durban's air freight volumes are also soaring. International cargo increased by almost 14% in the third quarter compared to the same period the previous year.
We've managed to attract new airlines to fly from this airbase. So over the past 2 years or so, we've seen the introduction of air services by Turkish Airlines, by Qatar, ProFlight from Zambia, So that additional airline capacity, especially your wide-bodied aircraft by those major long-haul carriers from the Middle East and Europe, that has increased the cargo capacity available. So as a result of that, a lot of manufacturers who are based in this province have been using that available belly capacity. But over and above, your passenger aircraft, we've also seen an increase in dedicated cargo freighters landing at King Shaka International Airport.
Since the airport opened almost 8 years ago, the Durban Cargo Terminal has demonstrated a positive trend.
When we started, we did not have a lot of export into sub-Saharan Africa. I think it's been one factor that has grown a lot over the last, I would say, 3 years specifically. So markets like Kenya and Angola, we've seen growth which was non-existent when we operated. But also, be that as it may, we've also seen that the trade tends to be very one-directional. So we export a lot to a lot of these sub-Saharan African countries, but there's very little coming back. But obviously, as those countries improve their manufacturing bases, that picture will sort of change.
Cargo volumes are expected to expand by up to 12% by the end of the 2017-18 financial year.
Let's get more now. Our reporter Mlungisi Kumalo is standing by for us in Durban. Mlungisi, good afternoon to you. I suppose as we look ahead to SONA tonight, there are a lot of questions also with the budget next week. How will President Ramaphosa navigate getting the economy back on track, considering that he has to balance the radical economic transformation approach as well? So it's a bit of a tightrope.
Yes, thank you very much, Natasha, and a very warm welcome to our viewers at home. I am here at the Durban Harbour, one of Africa's, if not Africa's most busiest ports. And like you said, Ramaphosa has quite a tricky one tonight, where he has to try and balance the playing field between those that were previously disadvantaged and those that they have, supposedly the whites. But like I said, I'm here at the Durban Harbour, where almost 60% of the country's GDP is generated from imports and exports. And earlier on, like you mentioned, when we spoke about radical economic transformation, Transnet is one of the companies that has been at the very, very forefront in order to make sure that they give the people that are previously disadvantaged opportunities for them to showcase their business skills and prowess. But before I just get to radical economic transformation, Mr. Motleke, roughly, how has the harbour been doing and faring in the last yearly quarter?
Thank you very much for having us as Transnational Ports Authority online. Greetings to your viewers at home. Look, we have been trending the economic performance of the country. We have shown growth, though it's not as high as it was before 2008 crunch. Last year we handled 88 million tons of cargo through the port of Durban.
Tonight, the President of South Africa, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, will have to try and juggle the economic trick. Now, in terms of doing well and in terms of you empowering the people that were previously disadvantaged, how are you doing in the front?
As the port system, that is National Ports Authority and Transnet, we've taken a decision that we want our ports to really support the government programs. We state-owned and are supporting those. In the port of Durban, we calling ourselves that we want to be a port that is a smart people's port, meaning that as we embrace technology, but we have to focus on empowering people. We have taken deliberate actions where our real estate department, for example, we have just taken to market some properties where we have insisted that the minimum requirement is 51% black ownership. We have done the same thing with the Lot 100 in our liquid cluster at Island View, where we said whoever will get that contract must have 51% black ownership as a minimum. So you can see that we really are trying to include, and we're insisting on having new entrants into the system so that we don't have same people taking the same opportunities, but we're really opening up the space to others. We also have large programs where we insist on localization, and again we focus on enabling black people to enter the space. We've got a program that is at this point in time being run from the port of Durban, hull cleaning, and it's got young black youth as shareholders in that business. And our intention really is to go beyond and make sure that in all our business transactions we are mindful of this national imperative.
Our viewers might not know of this at home, but I remember that at the end of last year we were here at the harbour where you unveiled the straddle carriers. You said for the very, very first time in the history of the harbour and in the history of Africa, you have bought these machines and you are now assembling them in the country and you create more jobs. Tell us briefly more about that.
It's one of our sister division. The Transit has taken a view that, like I was mentioning, localization, that instead of taking South African money and go and reach other countries, where it is possible, let's try and create value here at home. And then when these straddle carriers were bought, really the intention was to say they must be assembled and components that could be manufactured locally must be done here so that we keep as much as we can of our currency here at home. And in doing that, we get our economy going and also we empower our own people and keep the know-how on how to maintain those post-assembly. So we really are proud because this is a deliberate effort that we're doing. Here at the dry dock in the port of Durban, last year we were replacing the caisson door. Again, we used a local company from Durban, which is a black-owned company, to do that manufacturing of the caisson door. So we really mean business when we say we want to empower South Africans.
And lastly, we also recall that in the last quarter last year, Transnet alone made a turnout of roughly 17 billion. Now, from that transaction alone, how many black people, giving us a rough percentage, were empowered from that transaction?
Look, it's difficult to give you right now because we have to look at the year-end financial numbers. Then at that point in time, I think our head office, that is Transnet Group, will then make the announcement. But you will find that we really are committed towards assisting in this regard.
We also recall that in the year 2013, former president of the country, Mr. Jacob Zuma, went to Malaysia where he learned about Operation Pakisa, and Operation Pakisa was launched here in the harbour. One of the main objectives of Operation Pakisa was to try and develop ocean economy. What's the role of Transnet in that?
Look, we've got key initiatives that are seated at our plate as part of Operation Pakisa in the port of Durban. Again, the dry dock is an area where we're looking at marine manufacturing. It is targeting the ship repair and boat building. We have replaced the caisson door, and right now we're fixing our workshop 24, putting infrastructure that will support the repair and maintenance of big ships that are calling the port. In that way, we know we'll be creating opportunities for people who are in that business of ship repair and the boat building. We also have set aside training for students who took unemployed students, train them as millwrights and technicians, so that they can then carry forward this. And we are continuing with that. We do this across all the ports.
Thank you very much, sir. Unfortunately, that's the only time that we have, and we are just going to have to leave it over here. Like the gentleman has mentioned, that the Transnet is rapidly growing, and they also ensure that they want to empower the people that were previously disadvantaged. I don't know about you, sir, but right now I smell profits and I smell a very successful year for Transnet. Over back to you in studio.
All right, Mlungisi, thanks so much for that. Mlungisi Khumalo, live for us from Durban.